this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Time podcast. My guests and I are going to be talking about the intersection between emotions and money. Buckle up, everyone. Rachel Duncan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Julie. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that we were connected by somebody that met both of us and thought that this would be a good collaboration. So I am thrilled to get to know more about you. So fill the audience in on how you ended up intersecting these two worlds. So art therapy and money and how that's evolved for you.
Thank you. So I'm Rachel Duncan. I'm a financial therapist and art therapist. I'm based in Denver. So I'm a registered psychotherapist here in Colorado, but my big thing is actually offering money healing experiences worldwide. My company is called the Money Healing Club. And how it came to be sort of like the tale of two passions that only recently got intertwined. I kind of had this, well-rounded thing going on as a kid, like loving the arts and music and, enjoying that a lot. And also like always doing well in math and science. And it kind of like never had one that was like the strongest thing, but they would sort of take turns. Mm-hmm. And so like I was really into sciences through my adolescence. And then in college actually majored in religion. I got way into like the spiritual touchy-feely stuff. And then in my 20s, I was doing bookkeeping. It was like I kind of had these epics of different sides of me. And so that it made it really hard to choose because like I have a lot of loves and a lot of strengths. And when I went to grad school in art therapy, which I loved, but I was like, what do they charge? And how does the paperwork, like I have this more left side of my brain working at the same time. Yeah. And, and that's fine. I was like, okay, having these two different sides of me. And then I learned about financial therapy even existing during the pandemic when I had closed my business or closed my private practice. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I could bring those together. And it's like, click, 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 click. Everything clicked. I did a little extra training. It was a breeze. Mm-hmm. And ever since I said I'm a financial art therapist, everything has fallen into alignment where I don't feel like I have these two compartments happening anymore. And it might seem at first that these things are hard to blend. And let me tell you, it makes all the sense in the world. And it's the most fun. It's the most healing. It's also hard work, breaking trail, doing something new. But so that's my mission, is to bring compassionate money conversations to as many people as possible because we all really deserve it. And all of us have been hurt by money and we all have financial trauma. Let's just get real. So I think therapists have an incredible opportunity to be part of, we're all social justice warriors, right? Mm-hmm. Well, economic justice is a huge part of that. And we really have an opportunity to further the profession and everyone's healing by getting more comfortable talking about money.
I couldn't agree with you more. I love this intersection and how it came to be and the beautiful blend. So for those that are listening that are curious, maybe what specifically sets what you do apart and kind of how you would define it. What does it look like to work with you in this space?
Mm-hmm. Well, I do offer two things. I offer one-on-ones as well as my group membership. So the group is more like a support group and a learning group, kind of a very emotionally attuned school for personal finance. And then I have my one-on-ones. But really, I talk up with both of them. I love the practical stuff and working with the emotional stuff. I find them equally important, and
Mhm.
often one needs to happen before the other. So a lot of the folks that come to me really feel like, I know what I need to do. I know I need to sit down and get organized. I don't know where my money goes. I think I'm a pretty smart person. But the idea of sitting down and like setting up a money app or a budget or a spreadsheet or whatever, like I panic, I shut down, I freeze. Oh, what do all of those sound like? Oh, trauma reactions?
Mhm.
Yeah, because they are. So we got to work with that. Like, we're not touching a budget or anything like that until we do some real healing
Mhm.
on um, where the fear reaction comes from.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's definite. It's like, oh, that was my dad. And sometimes it's, I don't know. My parents are really supportive. Why don't I? And that's more of a, societal, cultural issue.
Mhm.
Um, Being left out of certain conversations or being part of a disadvantaged group of folks or marginalized, I should say. People with marginalized identities have many layers of financial trauma. So it's sometimes it's sort of understanding that, and I'm just doing all my basic counseling skills, right? Like
Mhm.
reflecting these things back, understanding, hey, we've got our individual stories. We are also groomed to consume. There's gender components, there's generational components, there's cultural components. And so I'm just reflecting that back. And it's this beautiful process of usually people realizing, oh, money's actually neutral. It's just everywhere. It's
Mhm.
just touched everything. And so when I felt hopeless and money is in the room, my brain did its trauma thing and associated money with the trauma. It was just in the room, just like the color yellow was on the wall.
Yeah.
Right. And so then we're learning self regulation stuff. Right. First off, it's just like dealing with the shame. Right. We're all here, like all very much shared experience. So there's that feeling that I'm not alone. I'm not a dumpster fire with money, and and now we're going to build in pleasure practices. We're going to feel like, how can I talk about money and still stay in my body? So we bring lots of stuff of that. And then I'm bringing in the art therapy is a really wonderful way to access how we do money, but from a very different standpoint. And it
Mhm.
works really well. And then maybe, I don't know, a few weeks in, maybe a month in, I
Mhm.
think I'm ready for that spreadsheet. Yeah. And we do it. And it is like no big deal. And
Oh,
I'm not
wow.
saying it's all easy then, right? But like you start on the trail where like now I can actually sit with this topic because it's not like life threatening anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, that was
It's just
a
basic trauma work. It really
absolutely.
is. Yeah.
Well, so I think about being trained as a therapist and owning two businesses. What I hear in the circles that I travel, whether it was the therapy room when I was providing counseling, or whether it has been in a virtual space as I provide consultations to people starting or expanding their teams,
Mm.
we all talk about money mindset. I think we all in the mental health profession can understand that for most of us, that is a component of the work that we do if we do branch off and start our own business. But I find it to be a challenge across the board. And it sounds like from what you're saying, this is something that everyone on some level can relate to. So I guess, why do you think that it is something that tends to affect those in the mental health profession so widespread? And then what in particular for those listening do you think is helpful for them to start thinking about to get them to a point where this is no longer a barrier in their business practices?
Right. I mean, I think no matter where you're at with your business, if you're an adult in this world, you're dealing with money,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're an employee. So on a very large scale, I actually think we have an ethical mandate to do our own emotional work about money as therapists because it's going to come into the room with your
Mm-hmm.
clients. And I have had so many, I cannot tell you how many clients have come in and said, I knew I had financial trauma. I went to therapy to work on it and it didn't go anywhere. And I say, it's because you can only go as far in therapy as your therapist has gone themselves.
Ooh, say that one more time.
Clients go as far in
Ooh,
therapy as their therapists have gone.
good one.
So it's just not going to go anywhere
Yeah.
if the therapist hasn't done their own excavating of that.
Mm.
So I think it's just like, no matter where you're coming from as a therapist, I think it's crucial. I think it's like outrageous that it's not offered in grad school. Like, I actually have my wonderful clinical supervisor here in Denver has brought it into the University of Denver as an elective. Go Kara. Kara Crossway Brindle, everyone. So it's happening, but it has got to be in there. Because often it fills in the gaps for a lot of folks. Anyway, back to what you're saying about like money mindset and stuff like that. I mean, here's a name for it: noble poverty. This is what's coming up with a lot of people in the helping professions in general. And it's systemic, right? This is an institutionalized oppression of like, well, if you want to help people, don't expect to make money. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just take my little paycheck, or I'll just get my, $80 a session, and that's all my work is worth, and this is what everybody gets, and I can't expect more, and my clients don't have money. And I'm not saying it like that is the reality. And so then for us to do this work, it's like, well, to do this work, this is the name of the game. And it's like, well, this must be the only way it can be. Right? So, and also so much of our work is, working with folks who have been disenfranchised and really trying to even the playing field. And so it's like, well, then I can't monetarily benefit from this. It feeds my soul. Right. Oh, but then I have to pick up shifts at the bar to pay rent. Like, well, hang on. Then how are you doing good work as a therapist if like you're making $50 a session? So, there's just what other profession in this country, in this world, do you need a master's degree for and are paid no more than if you worked at Starbucks? Like, tell me another profession. We are so, the return on investment, if you're to look financially, the return on investment on our degree is actually negative. I'll send you an article I just read. We lose money by getting a master's degree in social work and counseling when you compare it to law or engineering and stuff like that. So or it's just so baked in that you're going to lose money doing this work. So that's where I get like my righteous anger.
Yes. Oh, I'm feeling that. And I also see the other extreme where you have those that have maybe broken through that glass ceiling and they're charging extremely high rates for the counseling that they provide. And they also get a lot of feedback about this kind of whole other end of the spectrum and scale. Do you have any thoughts about that and how to get, I think that for some people, so much of it has to do with who you want to work with, who you do your best work with. I think there's always this inherent value and worth in everything, but I also see an extreme.
Definitely, especially therapists who leave therapy and go into coaching, which pains me. And guess what? I've ended up doing it too. It's like, how else can we make a living? I know it's interesting. And sometimes I see the I'll call it grifty stuff, like very high ticket stuff. But then it's like, well, you compare it to like a lawyer. Like we all know lawyers are expensive.
Right.
I don't know. It self-selects for sure, right? The clients who can work with them and those who can't. I know when I've raised my rates, that certainly eliminated some folks being able to work with me, but boy, did I do better work. That's interesting, right? Boy, was I more resourced to do other stuff. And I was resourced enough to make a membership that was lower cost. I think it's okay to offer several things. And I think if you're looking at, hey, I'm going to charge, over $300 a session, I say try it. Great. If that feels icky to you, then find some other ways you can give back. I have some feelings about sliding scale. I don't think it really works in what we do, but I do think, hey, then volunteer on a board, volunteer at a place that's separate from your private practice a day a week or, something like that. So I don't know. I think it's tricky. I think it's very individual. I think it's also okay to raise your rates.
Yeah.
And some people won't like it. And most people will be like, hell yeah, I want to pay more.
Can you speak more on the sliding scale?
Sure. Yeah. I think what's really tricky, and I've seen this so many times, the sliding scale. It's like, who's to say who can afford what? So then what are you going to do? Look at their tax returns? Like it brings in this a little bit of a weird dynamic about the role of the therapist in that, of determining what someone can and can't afford. When a person can determine what they can and can't afford, I have several clients who are sponsored by their parents. Great. I think then when you discount your work and then your client comes in and they've got new jeans and talked about their trip to Italy, you are going to sit there resentful. Right? And that resentment is really going to get in the way of therapy. And if you feel devalued, if you literally are devalued in your work, it leads to burnout. And I think it makes it really unclear. And I think having a very clear rate is like, it's a boundary, because money work is boundary work, right? And so in a boundary, it's like, here's the arrangement for me to exist and you to exist. Right? That's what a boundary is. So money facilitates that. The boundary is $200 a session, whatever. And now if that doesn't work for you, we can talk, right? But I would not discount my services.
Right.
I mean, it's also one of the reasons I started a podcast, and I love my email game. I have free resources to help folks so that I don't feel pulled to discount my services.
Exactly.
And then, boy, maybe they have a goal to shoot for. I really want to work with Rachel. So, I think it's important to have good referrals, like we can still do this in a really ethical way. Like, hey, where are there some other people who do similar work to you that like work at a nonprofit or have like agency funding to help people? This is the other thing is like, I think so, I hear people say, oh, well, I believe in social justice. I believe in making this work accessible. I'm like, I do too, but I don't have a grant to do that. But down the street, I've got Jewish Family Services that is well endowed and can totally help you out, right? They're in a place that has the infrastructure for it. I think us in private practice don't have the infrastructure to discount our work. So it's tough. I have coached many therapists through this, and it's hard to, hey, I'm going to raise my rates $10 a year. And it's just how it is. Shore up all of those sliding scales. It's hard. Some people won't like it, but the majority will be like, heck yeah, 10. Also, it's like $10 more. Like most people, if they value your work, it's usually going to be fine. Like you can't afford not to. And then you're going to get burned out. And then that doesn't help anybody. So I would rather see fewer clients that I really do excellent work with. I also don't do lifers. I charge a higher rate, but I'm talking 8 to 12 sessions. Like I'm not the kind of therapist that's going to work forever. Also, because I'm doing such a specialist thing.
Right.
A lot of my clients are in more regular therapy. So I consider myself kind of a hired gun, like a specialist for a little bit. So that's another thing. Like, hey, I am a specialist in this. So I charge a specialist rate.
Yeah. So I appreciate you going through that. That was so helpful.
Yeah.
So if you are working with a therapist that already has mental health training on their money trauma, is your approach to working with them any different than someone who's in another profession or has different training?
I don't think so. I think I start out the same way. I'm gonna make sure we're talking about rates. Maybe in a way that someone else who maybe just has W-2 employment isn't. But yeah, I'm going to talk about rates, and I'm going to really hold their hand through that.
Okay. And so how are you incorporating the art component into the money conversations?
Oh, it's so great. Well, it's not in every conversation, I will say. But in my in my training as an art therapist, we're really trained to approach everything as an artist. So it's hard to separate. So from the client's side, some sessions are going to have like an art making component and others won't. But from my side, I'm seeing everything as an artist. Okay. So I have a few just like kind of in the bag go-to exercises, and they really help bring in this really the right side of our brains, the side of our brain that is not spoken to when we talk about personal finance, right? But it's really there and it's really running. So I've got some journal prompts. So a couple of them, and I shared this on my podcast too, I'd love to share with you, is you write a letter to your money. Dear money. And you go, what do you just unload? Ask questions, express everything, right? Just dump. And then you close, you review that. And then you write money's letter back to you. I just did this today with someone. And I do it with myself all the time. it is so profound.
Hmm.
Money writes back, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
Money writes back, I want to be closer to you. Why do you push me away?
Yeah.
It's this character. Now, I'm not saying with everybody, but I have done this so many times that the character of money, guess what it is? It's essential self energy. And that is interesting. It is curious. It is compassionate. It's also bandried and won't put up with your shit. I'm like, okay, there is this whole IFS world that we can do with money. And I use IFS quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And when we actually tap in directly to money and we want to hear what money has to say to us, it is big self energy. It's very cool. So, okay, have we talked about a number? No. We don't need to. Like, oh, money wants to be with me. It's me that's not letting it in, or it's me that's stopping it and it actually wants to heal me.
Mm-hmm.
Or that crappy stuff that happened in my past, that wasn't money's fault. That was those people's fault.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we get it. That's the trauma stuff where like, what responsibility do we put where? Money was in the room, but it wasn't its fault. And money will communicate that to you if you ask it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we have somewhere to go with, hey, now I actually have I've opened a conduit with money. And now, should I get a new car or not? Or should I go on that trip or not? Dear money, what do you think? And I get money's response back. It's always right. So journaling's very cool.
Yeah.
Then I bring in, some actual art making. Now I do everything online, which I love because I can reach so many more folks. I wish we could be in person because I would do a lot more collage, but that's not always possible online. But I'm like sticky note and ballpoint pen is just fine. Making it an image of your money as a creature. That's a beautiful one. I do that a lot with groups. Draw a family portrait that includes money as a family member. Make an image of a container for your money that has a lid. Mm-hmm. And it's not just that one image. It's then working with it. Okay, what else does this need? Does something need to be subtracted? Does something need to be added? What could you do for this image to feel complete? Mm-hmm. That's really what the art making is. It's you get it out, and then you are starting this dialogue with it and changing it. So those are a handful of my go-tos. Mm-hmm. And then if I'm doing one-on-ones, we're going to go more specifically, right? Oh, I feel like a kid about money. Could you make an image of that kid? Right. Well, that's where we're going. That's where I'm interested in. Yeah. What does she need? What does she want? Mm-hmm. Right. And it's all existential stuff. Yeah. It's all safety. All roads lead to safety when we're talking about money. Mm-hmm. So that's where I take it. And it's different for everyone. And also there's a lot of commonalities for sure.
So as you're walking somebody through this process and they're doing the work and they're getting to this point where they have that sense of safety when it comes to money, do you find that is an automatic parallel to being able to filter through maybe some of the feedback that they may get from the outside world? So I'm thinking of somebody who maybe enters into coaching, they set their rates, it's really hard for them to charge that. And then after they do this work with you, they might have someone who has an issue with that rate or isn't able to afford it. Do you find that it's kind of this natural progression where you get more comfortable addressing that? Or do you find that it's common for that still to be an issue for a period of time?
I just did a deep dive on boundaries. Actually, we did a theme of boundaries in my membership, which taught me so much. I mean, boundaries are my final frontier for sure. And I think the thing is, I think it does get harder before it gets easier because actually I'm asking you to do something you've been avoiding for years. Exactly. So I actually think the growth edge is really stretchy. I'm like, I've never talked to a client about a rate before. And so I think there's that discomfort with the growth. Yeah. But then holy shit, I did it.
Mm-hmm. And then it gets easier and easier.
Yeah. The discomfort is part of the journey. You're still doing it right. It's just uncomfortable because it is. Boundaries can be really uncomfortable. So I do think there's a little bit, and I tell people, this is going to get harder before it's going to get easier because we are doing something you've been avoiding forever.
Right.
And then, man, there's a 6-month mark, Julia. Mm-hmm. I find this in therapy as well. There is this 6-month mark that's oh, I did that thing. It was not a big deal. I just raised my rates, or I just canceled that thing, or I just told a client we're not a good fit. It was not a big deal. That was a big deal 6 months ago. It kind of goes from cognitive and it filters down. as the
Mm.
healing happens, where, or like I work with a lot of folks who identify as impulse spenders, right? Like, oh, I had a bad day and I didn't buy a sweater like I usually did. I like called a friend or I journaled or like did my thing and it felt so, I'm so proud of myself.
Mm.
Also, I don't have anywhere else to share that win. That's
Right.
huge. This was the first month I spent less than I made. I actually have like a little cup of confetti. I will throw it when I hear this. Like, I am just like, I am obsessed with people interacting with their money more. And when they can share, and they're like, oh, this like shouldn't be a big thing, or this is so embarrassing. This is a big deal for me. I'm like, go! Like, I get so pumped about it. Or like, yeah, I went out to dinner with my friends and I ordered water and I said, this is what I'm going to pay. The splitting the bill with friends at restaurants is always comes up. Like you do your own work with money and then you go out to dinner with friends and it all goes out the window. So we talk a lot about that too, like the social pressure. So I do think the number one is like, what are you doing with yourself?
Yes.
And then, hey, you're going to take it out into the wilderness and it's going to get tested. That's it. Like, just like in anything in life and in therapy. And I love the stages of change model. So I bring that in a lot too. Like it's not a linear progress. It's sort of this like spiral that generally trends up, but you're going to feel like it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And that really helps because I always say like, come back, like always come back. Because you're going to have all these early wins or early struggles and then wins. And then your budget gets blown again. And you're like, I'm a failure. I'm like, no, that's part of it. You actually have to go around the cycle 2 or 3 times before you leave it. So that's been really helpful. Yeah, kind of like for more addiction work, because there's a very addictive qualities from money. So I bring from IFS, I bring from addiction work, art therapy. I'm kind of bringing in all this stuff.
Absolutely.
And it all works in some way or another. And I'm constantly learning. It's really incredible, fun work for me.
And I'm also seeing how you walk someone through this journey. They're doing the work. They have some wins. They lean into the discomfort and they come out on the other side. But then I'm also seeing how this infiltrates every other aspect of their life and has the potential to enhance everything from their other relationships, their ability to take better care of themselves, their worth, how they enter a room, how they go, through their daily life. So, I'm sure that that's got to be incredibly empowering and for you to take a step back and see some of that in the time that you work with people. Do you find that people reach out after the fact, once your work is complete?
A few people do. Yeah. It's really great. I got a note from someone I'd worked with about a year prior with a photograph of the store that had been their nemesis. Yeah. And it was like, look at me, just walking past, like no big deal. It's so great. Yeah, I do hear back from people. And I'm not a lifer kind of therapist. Like we kind of do an intensive, but it's, we do have a lifelong relationship with money. I do have some people come back to me like, oh, I'm in this whole new situation, or like do a bunch of work with someone and then they get an inheritance. And they'll come back to me, right? Because it's like sometimes we reach these different life stages like, holy hell, I need to talk to someone again. And, I'm not a planner. I'm not an advisor. I don't really talk about investments other than very broadly accepted personal finance advice.
Yeah.
But I do find that I provide that bridge where then someone could know, oh, I should take that to a CPA or I should take that to a planner. And I can do that like in an embodied way because of doing this work with me.
Exactly.
So I'm kind of just like grappling with that fear or that embodied sense. So then they can go on to do the more advanced stuff. Because I pretty much stay in like pretty basic personal finance, but that is a lot of the work.
Absolutely. And foundational for sure in order to build on anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So if you could go back into the graduate programs where a lot of the social workers and, those training to be in the mental health profession are getting these negative messages that reinforce a lot of these issues and challenges, what message would you send instead?
Some of this is, it is so structural. I wouldn't talk to the students. I would talk to the institutions. Yeah. Like, why do we have not only unpaid internships, but why do we have to pay to be in internships? Like, right out of the gate in the training, I don't know about you, but my internship site was run by interns. And we were paying for it, and it's so unethical. I don't understand how it can continue. So I honestly think from like a policy level, like we should not be doing any unpaid labor. And like, oh, it's training. I'm sorry, we were running that place. Sure, we were learning, but we were absolutely running that organization. So I do think like from a top down, we need to have paid interns. I think just even that. So yeah, my work is valuable. I get paid for my work. Like I think that's an important part of it. I also think even an internship, I think interns should be like knowing what are clients being charged? How does insurance work? Like, why are they left in the dark with that? You know, I think that'd be helpful to know. So I think it's like on an institutional level. I do think that needs to be helped. I also think financial therapy should be part of our training. I think we all need to learn about our relationship with money, just as we learn in, our relationship with our body or with food or addiction or whatever, your specialty is in grad school. I really think there needs to be financial therapy for therapists in grad school, and that will do a lot. And career counseling. I just think there needs to be good, not us learning career counseling, but receiving career counseling. Like, just because you're a new grad doesn't mean you can't negotiate when you are applying for your first, clinical job. I just think there needs to be a lot more advocacy for students and recent grads out in the field. I mean, I had friends work as a nanny for the first 2 years because they can make more money. This is crap. It just makes me so mad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, such great points.
Did that answer your question?
Absolutely did. I really appreciate that. And those are some great ideas. So fill everyone in on how they can learn more about you and work with you if they're interested.
Yeah, thank you. Everything lives at moneyhealingclub.com. I'm a little bit on Instagram at Money Healing Club. And I have a free mindful spending email course that everyone is welcome to join. I'm hot on email. I also started a podcast called the Money Healing Club Podcast, very much like this. Thank you. And I also have a little special for your listeners. If you are interested in the club, which is open to anyone, if you use the code CLIMB, you can join the club for half off your first month. So you just go to moneyhealingclub.com, join the club, and you get half off your first month. And I'll let Julia know. Therapists quite welcome. We've got a handful of therapists in the club for sure. So you're all in good company.
That's awesome. Well, you got me to clap multiple times in this episode, so that's a good sign. This was great information. I really appreciate the work that you do and all that you shared with the listeners today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Julia.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.